You've been asking for this for a long time, and after searching high and low, I finally found 3 intense stories that all took place during school lockdowns. It was just an ordinary Friday in calculus class, the kind where everyone's eyes are glued to the clock, waiting for the bell to ring. The week was almost over, and with spring break just around the corner, you could feel the excitement in the air. The entire class was fidgeting in their seats, probably counting down the seconds until the weekend. We didn't have a test that day, unlike some of the other students in their other classes. Our teacher, Mr. Thompson, was one of the more relaxed ones. While some teachers were busy with quizzes and lectures, he decided to keep things light by playing a brand logo quiz game on Sparkle.com. It was kind of fun, even though I wasn't sure if anyone really cared about the answers. That's when it happened. Right after my friend Mark answered a question correctly, by the way, suddenly the loudspeaker crackled. The voice on the other end wasn't calm at all. It was Mr. Walters, our dean, and he sounded frantic. "This is NOT a drill. Go into lockdown immediately," he said. That's when the air shifted. We all froze. Even Mr. Thompson, usually so calm, rushed to turn off the lights. His face looked pale as he directed us to the back corner of the room. We sat there, unsure of what was going on, but we could all feel something wasn't right. The buzzing from the back panel of the room stopped, which made it clear the power had been cut. No one spoke, but I could feel the tension rising in the room. It was the longest silence I've ever experienced at IT. Was a typical overcast day, and the first lunch period had just ended. The sky was gray and the air felt thick with the promise of rain. I was hanging out with some of my friends when we heard the loud booms. At first, I thought it was thunder, but then everything went crazy. The whole lunch crowd started screaming and running in every direction, making the whole place feel like one giant panic attack. Campus security rushed in, yelling at everyone to get into the multi-purpose room immediately. Kids who were in line for lunch had to throw their trays away and rush inside. Everyone was so confused and scared. I remember glancing around at my friends, all of us silently wondering what was going on. We crowded into the multi-purpose room with what seemed like half the school. The noise from everyone talking filled the space. But things were about to get even stranger. The back wall of the room was made of glass, and I could see security covering it with curtains. Adults stood at every exit, watching us closely. I glanced at Eric, one of my friends, who had a look of curiosity in his eyes. He went up to one of the adults and asked what was happening. When he came back, he looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. "You know those houses right in front of the school?" he asked, looking a little freaked out. I nodded, still confused. "There's a guy who's mentally unstable. He barricaded himself inside his house, threatening to kill himself and shoot any cops who tried to get him out." I felt my stomach drop. But it got worse. He was outside the school, watching us. The guy's also a registered sex offender. I didn't know what to say. We were stuck in the multi-purpose room for what felt like forever. Everyone was whispering nervously, eyes darting to the exits. We didn't know if the man was coming for us or if the whole thing was going to blow over. Finally, after what seemed like 2 whole periods, we were escorted back to our classrooms. As we left the room one by one, I could feel the tension in the air. We didn't know what was going to happen next. At IT was only later that I found out the man lived right next to Brandy, one of my friends. She had told me about something creepy that had happened the Halloween before. She had seen the same man standing by his window, cutting his arm and writing strange words in his own blood. "Don't come here or I'll kill you," the message read, smeared on his window. At the time, people thought it was just a Halloween prank. But after what happened, we all knew the man was dangerous. It was one of those moments where you can't stop thinking about it for days. The whole school was on edge, and everyone talked about it for weeks. I'm just glad that nothing worse happened, but I'll never forget that feeling of not knowing what was going to happen next. At IT was the beginning of October, and the weather was as gloomy as the situation about to unfold. The sky was gray, and rain was starting to fall. It was the first lunch period, and I was sitting with some friends, enjoying our lunch and chatting about the usual stuff until everything changed. At first, I thought it was just thunder. But then, I heard the loud booms again, and this time, I could see panic spreading through the lunch crowd. People were screaming, running in all directions, and it felt like chaos was suddenly everywhere. I turned to my friend Ben, who looked as confused as I was. We both knew something wasn't right. Before we could even process what was happening, campus security rushed in, yelling for everyone to get inside the multipurpose room immediately. The kids who were still in line for lunch had to throw their food away and hurry inside, which made everything feel even more urgent. I grabbed Ben's arm, and we rushed in with the rest of the students, unsure of what was going on, but knowing we needed to follow the instructions. The multipurpose room was huge, and the back wall had see-through glass. When we got inside, the security started covering it with curtains. It made everything feel even more secretive and tense. Adults were at every exit, watching the students, making sure no one went anywhere. My friend Jake, who was always the curious one, walked up to one of the adults and asked what was going on. When he came back, he looked terrified. "There's a guy," he said quietly. "A crazy guy. He's been walking around outside, watching us, and now he's barricaded himself in his house. He's threatening to kill himself and shoot any cops who try to get him." That was enough to make everyone stop talking. My heart started to race, and I felt the room get even quieter. I tried to ignore the growing fear inside me, but it was hard. "Jake wasn't done, though. And he's also a registered sex offender," he added. I felt like the world was crashing down around us. We were all stuck in this giant room, and we had no idea if the man was going to come for us next. The adults were trying to stay calm, but you could see the tension on their faces. The whole school seemed to be in a state of emergency, and there was nothing we could do but wait. We were trapped in the multi-purpose room for what felt like forever. It was one of the longest hours of my life, just sitting there in silence, waiting for any sign that things were going to be okay. I remember watching the clock tick slowly as the minutes passed, feeling like time was dragging on forever. Eventually, after what seemed like 2 periods, we were finally allowed to leave, but it wasn't like it had all ended. We were escorted back to our classrooms one by one, and as I walked down the hall, I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting something to happen. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still in danger. It wasn't until later that I found out more about the man. He actually lived right next to my friend Lila. She told me that on Halloween the year before, she saw the same man standing in his window, cutting his arm and writing in blood. "Don't come here or I'll kill you," he had written, smeared on the window. At the time, Leela and the others thought it was some twisted Halloween joke, but after what happened that day, we all knew that the man was truly dangerous. The whole school stayed on edge after that, and we all talked about it for weeks. It was one of those things that stuck with you, even when you tried to forget it. I can't explain how it felt knowing that someone like that was so close to us, and how lucky we were that nothing worse happened. But it still haunts me, thinking about how easily things could have gone differently. It had been a normal day at school at least. That's what I thought. I had just finished my classes and started my shift in the school's basement as part of a student internship. I was working in the computer office, a small space with 3 desks, a couple of mini fridges, and a TV on the wall. It was honestly one of the nicest rooms in the entire school, and definitely the coolest place to be, especially when the rest of the school felt so hot and cramped. The best part was that I was alone, which meant I could listen to music and enjoy my sandwich without distractions. My coworkers, Jason and Ethan, were upstairs working on papers, so I had the whole office to myself. But little did I know that peaceful lunch break was about to be ruined. I was texting my friends and munching on my sandwich when suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message from the front office. "Lockdown in place. Someone possibly armed entered the building. Stay inside and don't leave your office." My heart immediately skipped a beat. A lockdown? Was this real? I sat there for a second, not sure what to do. It was hard to believe that something so serious was happening at my school. Since the basement office didn't have a door, I turned off all the lights and shut off my computer screen to stay as hidden as possible. I didn't want anyone to find me if the situation was worse than we thought. My phone kept buzzing with messages, but I couldn't answer. I was too scared and unsure of what was happening. For what felt like forever, I sat in silence, hoping the lockdown would end soon. But just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the door at the top of the basement stairs creaked open. The sound echoed through the empty space, sending a chill down my spine. Someone was coming. I was frozen in place, my heart racing. I thought about calling Jason and Ethan, but I didn't know if they were safe. Then, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. I quickly crawled under the desk, holding my breath. I tried not to make a sound, knowing that any noise could give me away. The footsteps came closer. I felt like my entire world was closing in on me. Suddenly, the door to the office opened, and someone stepped inside. The only light came from the tiny glow of my phone screen. I could barely see who it was, but I could hear the person breathing. They didn't turn on the lights. It was like they were trying to stay as hidden as I was. That moment. My phone dinged with a new message, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. My hands were shaking as I pulled my phone from my pocket, afraid the person would hear it. The message was from Ethan. It said, "Dude, this is crazy. Someone with a gun shot Mr. Thompson. He's wearing a red shirt and a hat. Whatever you do, don't go upstairs." My stomach dropped. The man with the gun was in the school. Was he downstairs? Was I about to be caught in the middle of something dangerous? I felt my body freeze with fear. Then, I looked up. The man in the room had noticed me staring. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to escape. Before I could make a move, I heard a loud noise like a gunshot from upstairs. My whole body jerked, and I thought for a second that it was the end for me. But somehow, I stayed calm, and I bolted toward the basement stairs, hoping to make it out before anyone realized I was there. As I ran up the stairs, I heard the man behind me. I had to keep moving, faster than I ever had before. I burst through the basement door and into the hallway. The sound of the gunshots still echoed in my ears, but I didn't stop running. The police were already waiting at all the exits, and I could see them rushing toward the man. They called him out as soon as he opened the door. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't made it out of that office. I was just so lucky. But there was one thing that stuck with me after that day. The gunshot had been so close, and I knew that if things had gone a little differently, I might not have made it out. After everything was over, I found out that the shooter had some sort of personal issue with Mr. Thompson, one of the teachers. No one was sure what had really happened, but the story got around that the man was going to shoot the teacher. Luckily, the police got there in time to stop anything worse from happening, and Mr. Thompson survived. Even now, when I think about that moment, my heart still races. The sound of the footsteps, the gunshot, and the fear of being trapped. It's something I'll never forget. It was a regular day at school, and I didn't think anything out of the ordinary was going to happen. It was a cloudy, cool afternoon in early October, and I was at lunch with my friends chatting about the weekend. The bell rang, signaling that lunch was almost over and we were all making our way back to class. But as I walked past the gym, I heard loud bangs, booms that sounded like something serious. At first, I thought it was just thunder, but then I saw students running down the hall and security guards rushing around, shouting for everyone to get inside. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. We were quickly rushed into the multi-purpose room, which was huge and had one wall made entirely of glass. Everyone was scared, whispering about what was happening. Some kids thought it was just a drill, but there was no way it was. The campus security had started pulling down the curtains over the glass windows, making it harder to see what was going on outside. Curiosity got the best of my friend, Noah. He was always the brave one, always asking questions no one else would. He went up to one of the adults standing near the exit and asked what was happening. When he came back, his face was pale. "There's a man outside," Noah whispered. "He's barricaded himself in front of his house and is threatening to kill the police if they try to make him leave. And get this, he's watching us." I felt my heart race. Why would someone do that? Why was he looking at us? The entire room went silent. Everyone's eyes were wide with fear. Noah added, "He's a registered sex offender too." Now, things weren't just weird, they were downright terrifying. We were stuck in the multi-purpose room for what seemed like forever, listening to the sounds of police and campus security rushing around the building. We didn't know what was happening, and we couldn't go anywhere. Every exit was blocked, and we had to stay put until it was safe again. As we sat there, all I could think about was how close this guy was. I kept imagining what might happen if he actually came onto campus. What if he came for us? It felt like we were in the middle of a movie, one of those horror films where the characters are trapped and can't get out. Finally, after what seemed like hours, we were escorted out of the multi-purpose room, one group at a time. We weren't allowed to go straight back to class, though. Instead, we had to stay in groups, and adults walked with us down the hall to make sure we were safe. No one said much as we walked. The tension in the air was thick. When I finally got back to my classroom, I sat down at my desk, still shaken. It was hard to focus after everything that had happened. A few minutes later, my friend Lily turned to me and whispered, "You won't believe this, but that guy, he lives right next to me." I was shocked. "What?" I whispered back. "Yeah," she said. "I know him. Last Halloween, I saw him at his window. He was cutting his arm and writing something on the glass in blood. It said, 'Don't come here, or I'll kill you.' I thought it was just a Halloween thing, but now—" She trailed off, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Lily's story made everything worse. The fact that this man had been watching us, and now we were locked in a room because of him, made it all feel so real. It wasn't just some random guy. It was someone we had seen before, someone who lived so close to us. After the whole thing was over, I went home and couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't sleep that night, and every little noise outside made me jump, even though we were told everything was fine. Looking back now, I'm still shocked by how close we were to danger. We had no idea how serious the situation was until we were told what had happened. The man was arrested, but I still wonder what would have happened if he had come onto school property. Would we have been in even more danger? I'm just glad we were kept safe. That day taught me a lesson about how fast things can change and how quickly life can go from normal to terrifying. It's hard to forget that feeling of fear, but I try not to dwell on it. I just try to remember how lucky we were and how important it is to be aware of the world around you.